Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. This is the 3-Month Vacation. I'm Sean D'Souza. It's 4:31 a.m. Since we got back from Australia, which is the We Are Podcast conference, I haven't been able to wake up at 4 a.m. But today it's Friday, a week and a half after we got back, and I'm wide awake. What we're doing in this podcast series is we're exploring how to stand out when the competition is already outstanding. And we did part 1 and we did part 2, and part 1 was about how to create that personality, your likes, your dislikes, and especially your quirks. The second part was about the identification of a problem. Most of us think that we understand the problem of the customer, and yet when we go out there, just like Airbnb and Zappos and all these companies, they found that they didn't really understand the customer. And for this, you have to do a target profile interview. So those were the first 2 parts that we covered in the last 2 episodes. In this episode, it finishes what we started 2 episodes ago. So let's get cracking on today's episode, which is how to bestow a superpower. Garlic. How do you peel garlic? I'll tell you how I was taught to peel garlic. I was taught to strip the cloves away, then I had to slit every clove into 2 halves. Finally, as the garlic enmeshed itself in my fingernails, I would laboriously cut and yank away the skin of the garlic. It would be fair to say that peeling 1 head of garlic was a real pain. But what about 2 heads or 15? Now what if I told you could peel all of those heads of garlic in under 40 seconds? 40 seconds too long for you? How about 10 seconds? Because that's precisely the amount of time you would need to peel a ton of garlic. And here's how they do it on YouTube with the Savor Test Kitchen.
Let's face it, peeling garlic is a pain in the ass. It gets under your fingernails, it takes forever to pull the cloves apart. I'm going to show you how to peel garlic in less than 10 seconds. First, take a head of garlic. You head it with the heel of your hand to open up the cloves. Grab 2 bowls. Put the garlic into the bowl. Invert the lid over the top. And then shake the dickens out of it. And voila, all of your garlic is peeled. For more tips and recipes, go to saveur.com.
What you just experienced was the transfer of a superpower. A superpower is when you walk into the room without a skill and then you leave the room with a clear ability to do something. That is a superpower. So if you walked into a room to learn X-ray vision, you would walk out with X-ray vision. It's that simple. And when you're the one that's giving out these superpowers to your clients, it doesn't matter how strong the competition happens to be. The spotlight is on you and you alone. So how do you create a superpower? Superpowers need 3 factors. Factor number 1 is speed. Factor number 2 is frequency of use. And factor number 3 is it has to make the client a star. Let's start with the first factor, which is speed. Imagine landing on the Psychotactics site and finding the headline report. The headline report is what you get when you subscribe to Psychotactics. At first, it may seem just like any other incentive to sign up, but by the time you're done with the report, you have a superpower. You can write 3 types of headlines after reading just 10 pages. Pay close attention to the 10 pages bit because it's all about speed. And why is speed so important? Most superheroes get their superpowers by some freak accident. Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive spider, he becomes Spider-Man. Bruce Banner is caught in a radioactive blast, and this transforms him to the Hulk. The Fantastic Four get their superpowers after exposure to cosmic rays. And the headline report on the Psychotactics subscribe page, it does something similar. It gets you from not being able to write headlines so well to understanding how a headline is built. And it does so almost like a freak accident. It's super quick. That garlic video from the Savor Test Kitchen, that's barely a minute long. So what we're seeing here is a factor of speed. That superpower needs to be bestowed very, very quickly. If you look at the superpower and say, well, we could have hard work and we could have diligence, then that doesn't really work for a superpower. It's not very sexy. You, me, your client, we all want this instant bolt of lightning. We want it to hit us on the head and give us a super skill. This concept of superpower isn't restricted to just a report or a video. You've read the book The Brain Audit, haven't you? Now, as you're reading through the introduction, you get to a page that you can't miss. There's a picture of me doing this crazy 1-foot flying pose, and there's a distinct PS. Instead of the book taking you to page 1, it suggests that you start at page 89. Why page 89? Because on page 89, there are 6 questions. Those questions are designed to get you some of the most amazing testimonials you've ever received. Now, we're not talking about a 20-word testimonial. Instead, you may get something like 300 to 500 words in under 10 minutes, and from just 6 questions. So even though the Brain Audit is about 180 pages long, right there in the introduction is an embedded superpower. Readers follow that path to page 89. They hesitantly try out the 6 questions and boom! They're hooked on the Brain Audit. You see what happened? That's a superpower. A similar concept applies to a workshop or a course. In the cartooning course at Psychotactics, which we call the Da Vinci course, you're drawing Snoopy within the first 4 weeks. By week 5, you're drawing the very complex Sid.
What's up, my mammals? This is Sid the Sloth from the movie Ice Age, and we're about to do this new dance, the Continental Drift.
You know the sloth from Ice Age? Sid. You're drawing Sid in the 5th week. Week 6 brings in Kung Fu Panda. Week 7, the Pink Panther. And you're not just drawing it like a 5-year-old, but with such accuracy that your friends on Facebook look at you with awe. What you're seeing here is a factor of speed. And yet, when I was a teenager, I ran into the opposite of speed. As a teenager, I went for guitar classes. All year long, I learned to play scales on the guitar. My teacher said it was important, that once I mastered scales, I could play any piece I wanted. I'm really persistent, so I stuck it out for those 12 months, hoping that I could play Hotel California like the Eagles. Instead, that poor guitar of mine must be firewood somewhere because I never did learn to play the guitar. While my friends played tiny tunes, they played songs, they were encouraged to take on other stuff, I was stuck without a superpower of any kind. Speed is the first element that you have to consider when creating a superpower. Speed is what gets your attention as a prospect and turns you into a potential client. When I saw that video on how to peel garlic, I immediately wanted to subscribe to the Savor Test Kitchen site, which is on YouTube. I wanted more of it. And this is the whole point. despite the crushing competition in YouTube land, they'd managed to get and keep my attention. But as you'll find out from the Saver YouTube channel itself, speed itself is not enough. What you also need is a factor of frequency. So what does a factor of frequency mean? Let's head over to Saver Test Kitchen's YouTube channel, shall we? When you get to the Saver's YouTube channel, you may not notice the number of views at first. But if you look closely, there is a huge disparity between the Peel the Garlic video and the rest of the videos on the page. The garlic video has been viewed almost 4 million times, yet the rest of the videos have barely any views. Granted, the garlic video was posted over 5 years ago, and some of the videos have been posted just a year or so ago. But even so, the disparity in views is staggering. But if you take a second or two to linger on the page, you'll see why. The rest of the videos seem less important. There's one on how to humanely kill a lobster, which has 27,826 views. And if you're feeling the need to cut a head of iceberg lettuce, you'll join about 700,000 others who want to do the same. But the moment you get to the least watched video, which happens to be how to make 6 Manhattans in 60 seconds, you realize the problem. Garlic is what we deal with on a frequent basis. Manhattans and killing lobsters, well, that's not high on your priority list, is it? A similar concept applies to the headline report as well. You will need to write a headline for your newsletter, your article, even the bullets on your landing page. They're all headlines. The priority level is very high, isn't it? The superpower has to be frequently used. Imagine Spider-Man has a superpower to make an omelet while swinging from one point to another. Linger on that thought for a few seconds. Doesn't seem like a superpower Spider-Man would use a lot, would he? When you're considering giving the client a superpower, speed is a very important factor. But of course, frequency comes very close behind. There is also a third factor, and let's go to the third factor, which is one of making the client a star. I have an app on my iPhone. It's called Camera Plus, not Plus, just the plus. So Camera Plus. And now when I take a photo, any photo, I'll open it up in Camera Plus. Then I'll use the filters to improve the image. The question is, how much better does the picture look once it's been run through Camera Plus? The difference is astounding. A photo, any photo, can be radically improved with just a few filters. But Camera Plus has sold over 15 million copies of their app. And one of the reasons why it sells so much in a crowded marketplace is because it makes me look like a star. The core of the superpower is to put the spotlight on the client. The client takes an average photo, he runs it through the program like Camera Plus, and then he gets a depth of color and crispness that you can't get by just taking a picture and slapping a hashtag no filter on it. Friends and clients who see photos, and I take lots of food photos, they often ask me if I use a fancy DSLR camera like a Nikon or a Canon. Now, I do have a Nikon and a Canon. I also have other cameras. I'm a camera nut. But most of the time, it's just the iPhone. So I smile, I point to the app, and I happily show them how to get similar results. I'll tell them I'm so pleased with the app that I even wrote a small book on how to get amazing pictures. And these are mostly food pictures, but how to get amazing pictures. So see what's happening? Sure, the competition is daunting, but this app is getting me to sell their product. Every time I take a picture, it doesn't throw a spotlight on the company, it throws the spotlight on me. The more people comment on my photos, the more I talk about their product. The Savor Test Kitchen on YouTube could do exactly the same. They could have all of these amazing little how-to videos of everyday things that are important to me. Videos that make me look like a star. Now, I might be tempted to keep the source of information to myself, but that's not how most people are. People aren't like this crazy old grandmother who won't share their secret recipes. Most people are more than happy to talk about what caused their amazing transformation. And when you go back to my guitar classes in my teenage days, that is why I struggled so much. My friends who started out learning how to play at the same time as me were serenading women at the university with their songs. And I was reduced to plunk, plunk, plunk on my guitar. Yeah, sure, scales would have been wonderful for me in the long run, but it was not putting me in the spotlight. It was not making me a star. It was not getting me to tell my friends, you should go to this guitar teacher. He's gonna teach you how to play Hotel California in a week's time. And that's the whole point. The spotlight needs to go on the client so that they can talk about your product. Clients readily recommend the headline report to their friends. They talk excitedly about the 6 questions on page 89 of the Brain Audit. They talk how it gets them instant results. And in this podcast itself, I've repeatedly mentioned the Camera Plus app almost half a dozen times in the last few minutes alone. It's not enough to just create a superpower for your client. What you've got to do is you have to look at the 3 factors, which is speed, frequency, and making the client a star. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. It brings us to the end of this series where we looked at how to stand out when your competition is already outstanding. So it's been a long run. Let's do a summary. You don't ever have to be a big brand. You don't have to expand. You don't have to double and treble and do all that stuff that a lot of people do. You can be a small business, but you definitely need to stand out in the crowd. Standing out means you're able to sell your product or services quickly. And yes, at higher prices. Most of all, it helps you take that vacation. It helps you to spend time just reading, just doing nothing, traveling, doing stuff that you always wanted to do as a kid. You did as a kid, and then as an adult, you're always stuck with the responsibility of having to run a business or grow a business, and the downtime, there is no downtime. So yes, we all want to stand out from the competition, and it may seem like an uphill climb to stand out in the marketplace when your audience is already outstanding. But there are these 3 things that you need to get there. The first of the 3 things is the easiest, and that is you just have to be yourself. You already have a personality. You have likes, you have dislikes, you have quirks. The more you get your audience to understand who you are as a person, the more they're going to relate to you. Look around you and see how videos, books, courses, and websites, they seem to be devoid of personality. Then look at the performers that you like, the places that you like to go to, the people you enjoy spending time with. And you get this clear sense of personality. You get a feeling for their likes, their dislikes, and their quirks. So get that message out, even if you like weird things like washing dishes, listening to country music, or waking up at 4 a.m. So that's the first thing. Get your likes, your dislikes, and your quirks out. The second factor to consider is understanding the real problem. We all believe we understand the problem. We sit down and we write our landing pages, we work on our pitches, we work on our presentations, and yet many, if not most of us, are horribly off the mark. Airbnb struggled until they found the real problem the client was facing. Zappos.com, they had to dig deep to find the problem. We all start off expecting the problem to be obvious, but then along comes a client and they tell you the real problem. Read the brain audit, do the target profile interview, and find out for yourself what's bugging that client. At Psychotactics, we've been wrong so many times in our assumptions, and it's the client that puts us right instantly. We have to do that target profile interview. Waiting for the right problem is also a problem. We can get so hung up that we have the right problem that we forget that we don't need the best problem to sell a product or service. We need to start with one, then we need to tweak it, and so we go along. And lastly, finally, there's the concept of the superpower. The superpower is when you bestow a skill and ability on the client. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It should be actually a very, very small thing. A client should be able to put the knowledge or the system to use in minutes, even seconds. So speed is the first element of the superpower. The second important element of the superpower is the frequency of use. Something like headlines are needed every day. Garlic, you need to peel that. Now, that's important. But making 6 or 60 Manhattans, they go down the priority list, so you're less likely to stand out. Frequency is very important. If the superpower isn't frequently used, it's less valuable. Which is why you need to find a superpower or superpowers that have a high usage frequency. And finally, it's about making your client a star. You can push your product or service all day and it's still hard work. Or you can get your clients to talk about you all day long. When you make them a star, they can talk about you. They can take better pictures, they can write better headlines, they can get better testimonials. And so they talk about how they got to this super empowerment place. They talk about your product or your service all day long, which of course puts you head and shoulders over that outstanding competition. But what's the one thing you can do today? Where do you start? Start with the personality bit. You already have your likes, you already have your dislikes, you already have your quirks. Get the word out and you've started your journey towards standing out in an already outstanding world. It's going to take some time to get to the top, whatever the top might be for you, but you will get there if you steadily work through these elements. And yes, I can't help myself. I said one thing, but I have to talk about the second point. What's the superpower that you're going to give your client? What's your garlic video? What's your headline report looking like? A superpower is something that you give a client and then they never forget you. So work on these two things. The first thing is your likes, your dislikes, and your quirks. That's already there, so you just have to put it out. Put it in your About Us page. Put it in other places so people know about you, your podcast, like I'm doing right now in this podcast. And the reason I wrote this series is because of this little snippet in the Kathy Sierra video where she said, we were going to write these books and the competition was already outstanding. And I thought, what if you had to enter that world? What would you do? And this is the series. So if you enjoyed it, you know where you can leave a review on iTunes. Go to iTunes and leave a review and tell everybody that you enjoyed this series and all the other series. And I'll look forward to reading that review. So what else is happening in Psychotactics land? Well, we got back from Australia a couple of weeks ago and we had a blast there, but it's taken a long time to get back to normal. We haven't been going for a walk for almost 10 days, and today we're supposed to be going for a walk. So in about 30-40 minutes, I think we'll be hitting the road. Let's see. There is the Brain Audit workshop that we're going to be having in Sweden in June next year. I know, it's still October. This is called pre-sale. I'm talking about June a whole 6, 7, 8, 9 months in advance. So in June next year, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you want to come to Sweden, we're having a workshop there. We'll give you more dates later. But that is in June. What's happening in March and February? In February, we're having a workshop in Queenstown. And this is on how to create a really good landing page on the system that we've used over the years, and it has worked for us. So that's in Queenstown, New Zealand. If you haven't seen New Zealand, what are you waiting for? Get on a flight, get to New Zealand, and Queenstown is just astounding. So that's psychotactics.com/x2017, and you'll find very little information, just 6 lines, but you know that we do good stuff, and you'll find that the workshop is astounding. We're keeping a very small group, maybe 10, 15 people at best. If you're going to be part of that select group, you will thoroughly enjoy yourself and learn stuff. And we're going to be drinking wine. There's some great wine and some great food in Queenstown. So don't miss that. It's psychotactics.com/x2017. What's also happening is the first 50 words course. Now, some people ask, what are the first 50 words? These are the first 50 words of your presentation, of your webinar, of your article. How do you snap your audience out of whatever it is they're doing, whatever they're texting, and get them to pay attention in a few seconds? And that's what the first 50 words are about. Of course, we're going to learn how to write those first 50 words, and that course starts in March of 2017. To be precise, 6th of March 2017, but the seats get sold on 10th of December 2016. So you want to put that date in your calendar. That's the date that we're going to release the seats. There are only going to be a very limited number. When we say limited number, we put a finite number on it. So you're not going to have more than 25 people on that course, and we sell out very quickly. Most of our courses sell out in an hour, sometimes in 20 minutes. It sounds like marketing hype, but if you've been to a psychotactics course before, if you've signed up for that, you know that it's true. More information about the first 50 words course will follow with a sales page so you can see what you're getting into. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this podcast. And before we finish this podcast, I want to mention a little note that came in from Neha Avasti. She's a listener. She's also a member of 5000 BC. And she said, Sean, you're not sounding... What was the word? I think it was not as kind as you were sounding on the earlier podcast. Something's changed about you, and I hope this has changed. I hope I'm sounding a lot kinder, less, pompous. Anyway, I hope that tone has changed. And thank you for the feedback. I look forward to feedback from you. And I know it's hard to give feedback because you're saying bad things about people or not so good things about people, but yeah, please send in the feedback and the testimonials. And we'll see you in 5000 BC land or at one of the workshops or courses. Bye for now.